The first time a man tried to buy my wife in front of me, he did not offer flowers or a speech. He tossed a single dollar onto the white tablecloth like he was tipping a street performer and said, "I will make sure she has a good night." The bill skidded to a stop beside my glass. George Washington stared up at me like he wanted to apologize. My name is Mason Keller. I am 45 years old. I own Keller Forge Works, a North Carolina company that builds custom outdoor kitchens, fire features, and commercial grade smokers for restaurants that take barbecue seriously enough to argue about wood like it is religion. My hands smell like steel, oak smoke, and grinding dust no matter how much soap I use. I have permanently stained knuckles and a scar on my left forearm shaped like a lightning bolt because a welding glove once failed me at the worst possible second. My life has always been simple in the ways that matter. I wake up early. I work until my shoulders ache. I come home to a house I paid off 2 years ahead of schedule because debt makes me itch. I have 3 kids who treat me like a hero when their car will not start, and like an ancient idiot when I ask why every song on their phone sounds like it was recorded inside a washing machine. Caleb is 17, tall and quiet, a kid with my stubborn jaw and his mother's perfect hair. He wants to join the Coast Guard because he likes order and hates drama, which tells me he did not inherit that preference from my wife. My daughter Lila is 14 and has opinions on everything, especially my carbon footprint while she forgets to turn off lights in every room she leaves. My youngest, Owen, is 10 and still believes I can fix anything, including feelings, which is a faith I do not deserve. And for 20 years, I believed my marriage was steady, not glamorous. Not like the couples on social media who film themselves laughing in matching outfits like their lives are a commercial. Ours was real. Work boots by the door, homework spread across the kitchen table, a mortgage statement I actually understood. I thought that counted for something. My wife, Renee, is the kind of woman people notice before she even speaks. She walks like she owns a room. She dresses like she has a personal war with wrinkles. She works in corporate marketing for a lifestyle technology company that sells outdoor products with names that sound like they were created by a committee that worships buzzwords. She can convince a stranger to sign up for a newsletter and thank her for the privilege. For years, I let her shine in her world. I did not mind being the guy behind the scenes. I liked my workshop better than her networking events. I would rather listen to a grinder scream than listen to people argue about brand alignment. But I went when she asked. I smiled when she introduced me. I tried. Then, about 5 years ago, she stopped asking. She said my jokes were too blunt. She said my work clothes made her colleagues uncomfortable. She said her company culture was polished and I did not fit the vibe. She did not say she was embarrassed. She did not need to. Embarrassment has its own language. It lives in the way someone rushes through your name like they are trying not to choke on it. So I stayed home. I built my business. I coached Little League. I kept our life running while she climbed. And then last month, she walked into my shop on a Tuesday evening while I was test fitting a stainless counter for a restaurant in Asheville and said, "You are coming to the gala this year." Not, "I would like you there." Not, "It would mean a lot." You are coming. When a spouse who has spent half a decade keeping you out of a room suddenly drags you back into it, the air changes. It smells like trouble. It smells like someone needs something. The gala was at the Monarch Hotel in downtown Charlotte, the kind of place where a man in gloves opens your car door like you forgot how hands work. Marble everywhere. Lighting soft enough to make everyone look 10 years younger. A bar that poured whiskey that tasted like it had been aged in a bank vault. I wore my one good suit, navy, tailored once, worn twice. My shoes were polished. My beard was trimmed into something respectable. Renee wore a black dress that made every man in the room forget how to blink. She moved through the crowd like she was on a stage. She laughed at the right volume. She touched arms when she talked. She used words like synergy with a straight face. I stood beside her, the quiet accessory, the supportive spouse, the living proof that she had a home life. She introduced me the way you introduce a contractor you hired once and never want to admit you needed. This is my husband, Mason. He builds outdoor kitchens. Not he owns a company. Not he employs 23 people. Not he is the reason our kids have health insurance. Just he builds. I smiled anyway. I have swallowed worse. I was halfway through a drink I did not deserve when the man appeared. Ethan Price. He did not walk so much as glide. Perfect hair, perfect teeth. Suit so clean it looked like it had never been near a real day. He looked like confidence made human, then dipped in cologne and polished until it reflected light. Renee's face changed when she saw him. Not in a small way, not in a subtle way. Her eyes lit like she had been waiting for him. Her shoulders loosened. Her laugh turned warm, the kind of laugh she used to save for me back when we were young and broke and thought love was the only currency that mattered. Ethan put a hand at her waist like it belonged there. Not a grab, not a squeeze. A claim. Then he looked at me like he just noticed a chair had been placed in his way. Oh, he said, you are the husband. He shook my hand with a grip that was more performance than strength. His eyes flicked down to my hands, probably noting the scars and calluses, then returned to my face with something that felt like pity. They talked about campaigns, about launches, about late nights and client dinners. Renee laughed at inside jokes and leaned in close enough that her perfume wrapped around him like a ribbon. My stomach tightened. My mind tried to talk me down. Do not be paranoid, Mason. Do not be that guy. Then Ethan reached into his wallet with lazy confidence and flicked out a single bill. It fluttered and landed in front of me. $1, he said, smiling. For the trouble. The table around us erupted in laughter like he had delivered comedy gold. Renee's colleagues laughed. A woman in diamond earrings slapped the table. A man in a watch worth more than my first truck choked on his drink, wheezing. And my wife, my Renee, my partner of 2 decades, looked embarrassed for half a heartbeat. Then she laughed, too. Her laugh was not nervous. It was not forced. It was easy, familiar. She laughed like she was in on it. The dollar sat there, crumpled, insulting, a tiny paper verdict. I could have yelled. I could have punched. I could have made a scene that would have made my children hear about it from strangers. Instead, I picked up the bill, smoothed it flat, folded it into neat squares with careful hands, and looked Ethan straight in the face. Thank you, I said, voice level. I will put this toward your future expenses. His smile faltered, just a crack. I stood, buttoned my suit jacket, and walked away while the laughter died behind me like a song someone finally realized was cruel. Renee called my name once. I did not turn around. Outside, the night air slapped my cheeks cold. I tipped the valet $20 because the kid's eyes were wide and he looked like he wanted to disappear. I sat in my truck with the engine running and the folded dollar burning in my pocket. Renee did not come home that night. I did not need a detective to tell me. I sat in my shop at 2 a.m, the radio low, sparks flying, pretending a steel seam mattered more than the hole forming in my chest. Then my phone buzzed. A bank alert. A charge on our joint card, the Monarch Hotel suite deposit, $398. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. Then I screenshot it, saved it, emailed it to myself, and backed it up like a man who had just realized love does not protect you in court. At dawn, I heard her car. She came in slow, like a teenager sneaking home after breaking curfew. I waited. I let her think maybe I did not notice. Then I walked into the kitchen. She was standing by the coffee maker wearing yesterday's makeup and a man's jacket. Not my jacket. A charcoal blazer with a stitched name on the inside collar. E. Price. Her throat had a bruise near her collarbone. Not a scrape. Not a rash. A mouth print. She saw me and forced a smile that did not reach her eyes. You are up early. I never slept, I said. She laughed, a thin sound. The gala ran late. We went up to Ethan's suite with some colleagues. I fell asleep on the couch. It was nothing. Nothing. Her hand drifted toward her neck, like it had a mind of its own. I watched her stir her coffee exactly 7 times, clockwise, like routine could erase betrayal. Something inside me settled, cold and final. That morning, while she took a hot yoga class, I drove to a hardware store and bought 4 grade 1 deadbolts. The best, heavy, solid, the kind that make a satisfying click when they lock. Changing locks is a strange kind of therapy. You unscrew a past you used to trust. You replace it with something that does not care about your feelings, only your key. Caleb came out while I worked, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Dad, he said quietly, why are you changing the locks? I kept my voice steady. Home security. He stared at me. Then he nodded once, slow, like he understood more than I wanted him to. Does Mom know? She will, I said. He held the lock in place while I tightened screws. The metal bit into my fingers. The pain felt clean. By evening, Renee tried her key and found it useless. She pounded on the door like I was the one who did not belong. I opened it just enough to speak. The key does not work, she snapped. Neither does our marriage, I almost said. Instead, I leaned on the frame and let her see my face, calm, set. You should stay somewhere else tonight, I said. Her eyes widened with outrage, then fear. You cannot do this. I watched her mouth open and close like she wanted to find a sentence that would fix what she broke. Then she stormed back to her car and drove off so fast the tires chirped. The house went quiet. My hands stopped shaking, and for the first time in days, I realized the silence sounded like oxygen. If you want to know what happened next, ask yourself one question. How much damage can a person do when they have been stealing from you the entire time and you finally decide to look at the numbers? The next morning, the mail arrived with the usual junk: grocery flyers, credit card offers, a catalog I never asked for, and a thick envelope from a law firm. Renee had moved fast. That did not surprise me. People who care about image do not wait. They spin. They control the narrative before anyone else can speak. Her lawyer's letter was 3 pages of polite threats dressed in legal language. She wanted spousal support. She wanted equitable distribution. She wanted half my business. Half of the company she called a welding hobby whenever her coworkers asked what I did. I sat at the kitchen table and felt something hot rise behind my eyes. Not tears. Pressure, rage. The kind that makes your jaw ache because you are clenching without realizing. Then I did the one smart thing I have done consistently in my life. I called my attorney. Harper Nolan answered on the second ring. He sounded exactly like he always does, calm, almost amused, like chaos is just another file on his desk. Mason, he said, I was wondering when you would call. My wife served me before the coffee brewed, I said. A pause, then a low hum of satisfaction. Bring everything, Harper said. Bank statements, tax returns, business records, and stop talking to her. Everything goes through me now. I drove to his office with a cardboard box full of paperwork that represented my life. It was humiliating in a way I did not expect. Not because I was ashamed of my finances, because it meant I had to treat my marriage like a dispute over inventory. Harper introduced me to a woman named Priya Desai, forensic accountant. She looked like she could stare at a spreadsheet and make it confess. Sharp suit, sharp eyes, no wasted movement. She shook my hand and said, I am sorry you are here, but I love catching liars. That was the first time I smiled all week. Priya opened my laptop, logged into my accounts, and started pulling statements with the speed of someone unwrapping a present. How often do you review your business card charges? She asked. I check totals, I admitted. I look for anything wild. Priya's lips pressed into a line. Wild is relative. She turned her screen toward me. In the last 6 months, Renee had charged more than $48,000 USD to my business account. Hotels, restaurants, spas, high-end clothing stores, a jewelry boutique, a charge labeled executive retreat that looked a lot like a weekend at a mountain resort. My throat went dry. The Monarch Hotel appears 9 times, Priya said, clicking. Always Friday or Saturday. Always after 9 at night. No client names attached. No expense reports. Harper leaned back in his chair like a man watching a door open. This is not marketing, Priya said. This is a lifestyle. Then she found the transfers. Small at first. Et 500 USD. 200 USD. Tray 0 USD. Higlar. Consistent. Like a subscription, all going to the same destination. Priya zoomed in and read it out loud. Price Consulting Group, LLC. My hands went cold. Ethan, I said. Harper's eyebrows rose. She has been paying him. Allegedly, Priya said dryly, because she respected the rules even while sharpening knives. Priya pulled corporate registration records. Price Consulting Group, LLC had been registered 8 months ago. Owner, Ethan Price. Business purpose, strategic brand consulting. Priya snorted softly. Convenient. I stared at the numbers until they became a map. Not just betrayal, not just sex and lies. Theft, drainage, my family's stability used as fuel for their ego. Harper tapped his pen once. We will use this. Can I stop it? I asked. Priya nodded. Today, you remove her authorization from the business card. You freeze joint transfers, and we document everything. I drove back to my shop and did exactly that. I did not slam doors. I did not punch walls. I logged into accounts like a man closing valves before a flood takes the whole house. That afternoon, Ethan called my phone. Not my personal phone, my business line. I stared at it ringing and felt a slow, dark amusement slide through me. I did not answer. He left a voicemail. His voice sounded strained, the confidence scraped away. Mason, we need to talk. Renee did not tell me I deleted it without listening to the end, because I already knew what he was about to learn. And I learned it the next morning when Priya sent Harper an email that made Harper laugh out loud. Harper called me immediately. Mason, he said, tell me the name of your company's subsidiary. I frowned. Keller Forge Works owns Ridgeline Outdoor Systems. Why? Harper paused, like he wanted to savor the moment. Where does Ethan work? He said he was consulting. Renee said he was in marketing. My voice tightened. Why? Harper's smile reached his tone. Because Ethan Price is listed on Ridgeline's payroll as senior marketing manager. Silence filled my office. I felt my lungs forget how to move. You are telling me, I said slowly, that the man who tossed $1 at me works for me. Priya's email had attachments, payroll entries, employment file, performance reviews. I stared at Ethan's name on my payroll system like it was a magic trick that finally revealed the wire. Harper's voice sharpened. This is not revenge, Mason. This is governance, professional conduct, conflict of interest, misuse of time, misuse of resources, and the affair does not help him. It buries him. My fingers found the folded dollar in my wallet without me thinking. The paper felt softer than it should, like it had absorbed my patience. I want a meeting, I said. Harper's tone warmed. Now you are thinking like a man who owns the board. That afternoon, I drove to Ridgeline's office in Charlotte. Not the shop, not my world. Glass doors, reception desk, conference rooms that smelled like coffee and carpet cleaner. My executive assistant, Marla, met me at the entrance. She has worked for me 11 years. She knows my face better than most people. She watches for storms. She handed me coffee without asking. You have that look, she said. What look? The one that means someone is about to regret waking up today. I told her to schedule a mandatory meeting. All department heads, 10 o'clock. Conference room B. No details. She nodded and sent the invite with the kind of efficiency that feels like loyalty. At 10, they filed in operations, finance, human resources, sales, and then Ethan walked in. His stride slowed as soon as his eyes landed on me at the head of the table. The color drained from his face so fast it looked like someone pulled a plug. He tried to recover. He tried to smile. It looked like a mask slipping. Mr. R. Keller, he said. Ethan, I replied warmly, like we were old friends. Seat. He sat. The room held its breath. I placed the folded dollar bill on the table and pushed it toward him. It slid across the polished wood and stopped in front of his notebook. I believe you dropped this, I said. Ethan stared at the bill like it was a snake. A woman from Human Resources looked down at her notes as if paper could protect her from what was happening. I kept my voice even. Do you remember the gala? The Monarch Hotel? The joke you made about my wife? His throat bobbed. I did not know. You did not know she was married, I said. He hesitated. I tilted my head. Or you did not know who her husband was? Silence answered. I opened his personnel file, flipped through pages with slow care. Here it says, I read, executives are expected to demonstrate professional conduct inside and outside the workplace, especially at company events. I looked up. Would you call tossing money at the company owner and implying you are taking his wife for the night professional conduct? A sharp inhale came from someone down the table. Ethan's voice cracked. It was a joke. I nodded. Then you will not mind when I treat it like one. I closed the file. You are terminated, I said. Effective immediately. Conduct unbecoming, conflict of interest, misuse of company time. We will be reviewing your expense activity and your communications with an authorized user on the business account. His mouth opened. No sound came out. A man can look rich and still look helpless when the floor drops. Security arrived within minutes. Because Marla does not play games, Ethan stood, shaking, and tried one last time. Please, Renee told me you were just what? I asked quietly. He swallowed hard. Just a guy who builds grills? I leaned back in my chair. My smile felt like steel. Funny thing, I said. Those grills paid for the life you were trying to steal. Security escorted him out. His expensive shoes squeaked once on the tile like the building itself was laughing. The room remained frozen. I looked around at my leaders and said, we do not tolerate this. We lead with respect. Meeting adjourned. They filed out like survivors of a storm. I walked back to my truck and sat for a moment with both hands on the steering wheel, steady, breathing. Then my phone buzzed. A voicemail forwarded from our home line. Ethan's voice came through, high and panicked, aimed at Renee. You did not tell me your husband owns Ridgeline. You did not tell me he owns everything. I just got fired. Fired because of you. I listened to the whole thing. Not because I needed proof, because I needed to hear the sound of arrogance collapsing. That night, Renee called me over and over, 30 times, 40, 50. I did not answer. Caleb texted once, Mom is crying. She says you are cruel. I stared at the message, then typed back, I am not cruel. I am done. If you want to understand why I stayed calm, you need to know what calm does. Calm lets you see the battlefield. Calm makes your enemy talk too much. Calm turns rage into precision. And the next battlefield was not a conference room. It was a courtroom. Family court does not care about your feelings. It cares about documents. I walked into the courthouse in a suit that fit and shoes that did not squeak. Harper walked beside me, carrying a binder thick enough to qualify as a weapon. Priya sat behind us with her laptop open, calm as a surgeon. Renee sat across the aisle in a conservative dress, hair perfect, makeup designed to look brave but tired. Her lawyer leaned close and whispered like he was feeding her lines. She did not look at me. That was fine. I did not come for eye contact. I came for closure. The judge was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and a face that said she had heard every lie a human mouth could form. She looked at both sides like she was already exhausted. Renee's lawyer started with a story. He painted Renee as a devoted spouse who supported my business, sacrificed her career, endured emotional neglect while I buried myself in work. He called me controlling, vindictive, financially abusive. He said I changed the locks to humiliate her. He said I fired Ethan out of spite, using power like a weapon. The judge turned to me. Mr. Rand. Keller, do you wish to respond? I stood, I kept my voice steady because anger is a gift you give your opponent if you show it in the wrong room. Your Honor, I said. My wife spent the night at the Monarch Hotel with another man and returned wearing his jacket and a bruise on her neck. The charge hit our joint card at 3:47 in the morning. I changed the locks because I did not feel safe, financially or emotionally, living with someone who was actively draining our accounts. Renee's lawyer began to speak, but the judge held up a hand. Harper stood. If it pleases the court, he said, we have evidence that addresses the claim of financial abuse and the request for spousal support. He approached with the binder and placed copies on the bench. Bank statements, credit card receipts, hotel invoices, transfers to Price Consulting Group LLC. The judge's eyes moved across the pages. Her mouth tightened. She looked up at Renee. Mrs. Keller, can you explain why you charged $48,000 to your husband's business account in 6 months, including repeated weekend hotel stays and transfers to a limited liability company owned by Mr. Ethan Price? Renee's throat worked. Her hands clenched in her lap. Her lawyer tried. Those were business expenses related to marketing. The judge lifted an eyebrow. 9 luxury suites on Friday nights are a creative marketing strategy, counselor. The courtroom fell quiet. Renee's face went pale. The judge turned another page. And these transfers, repeated payments to Mr. Price's limited liability company. What was the business purpose? Renee opened her mouth. Nothing came out. The judge leaned back slightly. Let us try a simpler question. Were you having an extramarital relationship with Mr. Price? Renee's eyes flicked toward her lawyer, desperate. Her lawyer stood. Your Honor, the judge held up her hand again. Mrs. Keller, answer. Renee whispered, yes. The word fell into the room like broken glass. The judge nodded once, slow. Thank you. Then she looked down at the file again and asked the question that made Renee's lawyer look like he wanted to melt into the floor. Were you aware, Mr. Price was employed by your husband's subsidiary company, Ridgeline Outdoor Systems? Renee did not answer. Silence is also an answer. The judge's voice stayed calm, but her eyes sharpened. You misused marital and business funds to support an affair. You then requested spousal support from the same financial source you were siphoning. That is not equitable. That is theft. Renee began to cry, makeup breaking at the corners. Not pretty tears. Not cinematic tears. Tears that looked like panic, finally realizing the audience is not sympathetic. Harper did not smile. He did not need to. He flipped one more page and spoke softly. We are requesting full ownership retention of Keller Forge Works and Ridgeline Outdoor Systems due to non-marital misconduct and dissipation of assets, and primary custody due to instability. The judge listened. She asked questions. Priya answered with numbers and dates. Harper answered with statutes and calm authority. Renee's lawyer tried to argue that she had contributed to my business by supporting me as a spouse. The judge glanced at the receipts again and looked unimpressed. After an hour, the judge made her ruling. I received the house. Full ownership. Renee would not receive a buyout because her financial misconduct had damaged the marital estate. I retained full ownership of my business and its subsidiary. Renee was ordered to repay $62,000 USD in misused business charges and transfers, plus legal fees and court costs. I received primary custody. Renee received visitation under structured conditions until she demonstrated stable housing and financial responsibility. Renee sat there, mouth open, crying harder, like she thought consequences were something that happened to other people. The judge finished reading, then looked directly at her. Mrs. Keller, she said, this court does not reward betrayal with a paycheck. It was not dramatic. It was not loud. It was worse. It was final. Outside, the winter sun hit my face like a clean hand. Caleb waited by the courthouse steps because he insisted. His jaw was tight, but his eyes were steady. When I told him the ruling, he nodded once and exhaled like he had been holding his breath for months. Good, he said. That was all. Good. The weeks after court were messy. They always are. Renee moved into her sister's apartment and tried to call the kids with tears and guilt. Lila refused to be a messenger. Owen cried at night and asked if his mom stopped loving us. I sat on his bed and told him the truth in the only way a father can. Your mom made choices, I said. Those choices hurt us. But you are loved. You are safe. That will not change. I did not insult Renee to my children. I did not need to. Her choices insulted her better than my words ever could. News traveled anyway. Somebody posted court gossip online. Somebody saw Ethan escorted out of Ridgeline. Somebody recognized me at a gas station and said, "You are the guy." At first, I wanted to hide. Then the orders started coming in. Restaurants, backyard cooks, competition teams, people who wanted my work because they respected it, and because they respected what I did without swinging a fist. My waiting list doubled. Marla hired 2 more welders. I expanded my shop. I spent more time teaching Caleb than I had in years because he asked to learn, not because I pushed. One evening, I stood in my workshop late, the radio low, the smell of oak smoke drifting from a test burn. I looked at the folded dollar bill in my wallet and realized it was not just an insult anymore. It was a reminder that people will try to assign you a value if you let them. So I did something small and petty and perfect. I framed the dollar. I hung it above my desk, and beneath it, on a brushed steel plaque I cut myself, I engraved 5 words: Know your worth. Act accordingly. If you have ever been laughed at for the work you do, if you have ever been treated like you were less because your hands are dirty, let me ask you something. Would you have handled it the way I did, or would you have burned the whole room down and called it justice?